My name is Stuart Ramsay. I'm with Dominique van Heerden, who is Sky's senior foreign producer, and we're going to take some questions from you that you've been sending in. First one, I think, should we start with, is John. Haiti has a number of allies. He asks, why are they not supporting the government and army to remove the gangs? Dominique.
John, Haiti does have a number of allies, mainly CARICOM nations. They are supporting the government with a UN-mandated mission, which is led by the Kenyans. CARICOM nations are supporting them. The mission itself, there's a little bit of discussion, right, around whether it's been successful or not to date, but it is being funded mainly by the United States, and the Kenyans are leading the mission, and a few CARICOM nations are taking part in it. But to date, that started in June 2024, and to date they haven't quite managed to stop them yet.
Yeah, one of the problems I think that the Kenyans particularly have is they've had problems with their vehicles. They don't have enough of them. They're meant to have about 2,500 men, but not 2,500 haven't arrived yet. It's probably just about 1,000, 800 to 1,000. Countries are helping, but there is a sense that they could be doing more. Say the United States is pretty much bankrolling it, but it is a UN-mandated mission. Other countries are involved. For example, the number 2 commander is from Jamaica, who's out there. But in recent times, there's been communications with the United States, really recent, in fact, isn't it, Dominique? I think in the last week or so.
In the last few weeks, while we were out in Port-au-Prince, actually, the head of the Kenyan mission met with, John, they actually met with the United States. And I think you'll see in the coming days, there'll be quite a few announcements of financial packages and military support and
it was Mark
that
Rubio
type
as
of
well,
thing.
wasn't it? It was Mark Rubio.
Yes, the head of the Kenyan mission had a meeting with Mark Rubio, so very high-level US meeting, Secretary of State. Actually, it leads quite well to the next question, Stuart, which is from Joseph. Can other countries intervene militarily as this gang violence, he says, is close to being like genocide?
Well, they certainly can under the concept of being part of the UN mandate. What is really interesting, though, in recent months is that the crime gangs have been redesignated as terrorist organisations by the United States. Now, that gives, particularly in this instance, the Kenyans an awful lot more power to be very aggressive in their attacks. It means they can actually kill the leaders of the gangs if it fits with the operation that they have put in place to take the gangs down. That also means that anyone supplying weapons to Haiti, and most of those weapons do come illegally, but from the United States. Well, illegally selling weapons to gangs is one thing. Illegally selling weapons to terrorist organisation is much more serious. And so we suspect, and certainly the Kenyans have indicated everything to us, that you're going to see a ramping up of support from the United States, financial package, military assistance in terms of weapons and arms, but also some more concerted action on whoever it is that is dealing the guns to the gang.
And actually, Joseph, tomorrow, what's today? Tuesday, we're a bit jet-lagged. Tomorrow, Wednesday, we have a report with the Kenyans, actually out on a mission with them, embedded with them. So that might be interesting to see. You'll see a little more of the whole international intervention for that. Fred had a similar question, Stuart, there. Why is America not doing more to evict the gangs? But I think that really links into what John said about the allies.
Yeah. Also, it's interesting because in the United States, it really would be useful for them, how the United States makes it, that Haiti could be made peaceful and that people wouldn't leave the country, because millions of people are displaced and many have left and often go to places like the United States and to Canada as well. So it would be somewhat in the interests of President Trump that Haiti reach some type of conclusion that the gangs are beaten and that people would perhaps willingly return to their countries. And letting people we've spoken to over the years from Haiti who are living in the United States didn't want to leave. They were just burnt out of their homes and felt that they had no choice. But I think you're right, that does lead into that question.
It does. And also, Haiti is very strategic for America, for the United States, very, very strategic. And I don't think it's lost on them that just a few weeks ago, Russia opened a embassy in Santo Domingo in the Dominican Republic, which shares the same island as Haiti. So the Americans will no doubt be watching that closely. There's a lot of strategic importance for them. Less so, I think, for the UK. That's Howard Deal's question.
Yeah, Howard, why has Haiti, what has Haiti got to do with the UK? How much is it costing us? Are we giving taxpayers money to Haiti? I mean, as part of the UN, I suppose you would say, yes, we give some money to Haiti, but it's only part of its contributions. Where it has given money in the past, the United Kingdom has given money in the past, is specific for disaster relief, particularly after the earthquakes.
2010 and 2021, two very big earthquakes. Well, 2010 being the biggest.
The really big one, which I was actually out and covered. And a lot of that aid and the relief missions that were set up then are ongoing. But this is not, it's not something, a major drain on British resources. There are other Caribbean countries where we are very closely linked, of course, because they're British territories, or at least were British territories. But this Haiti is one of them.
The British government announced last year that they were sending support, security support, to the Turks and Caicos. Turks and Caicos is, aside from the Dominican Republic, the Turks and Caicos is the closest island to Haiti. So the British government was said to be sending support there for kind of border security and that type of thing. When there's a lot of volatility and upheaval in countries bordering, other countries tend to beef up their security. And I do think the British government, well, it announced certainly last year that that's what it was doing.
Yeah, and actually it's an interesting one as to who would be involved in helping Haiti. United States has been into Haiti in the past, and it really wasn't hugely successful. It's a French-speaking country. Canada has a huge amount of influence there. They too have given military assistance to the mission there. The big trucks that we were driving around with come from both Canada and the United States. But so far, neither has indicated any willingness to put soldiers on the ground themselves. In fact, quite the opposite. So they're happy to help financially, but actually sending troops in on the ground is not something that they've agreed to. A lot of people have asked them to, if that's fair to say. A lot of Haitians had hoped they would, but they've indicated at this stage that that's not going to.
No. Actually, just a question in while we were talking about the earthquake from Andy Lowe. Stuart, I have it here on my phone. And you covered the earthquake, so I'll get you to probably do this one. I recall a weak international response to the earthquake. Am I correct? Is the breakdown in social order in any way a result of the earthquake in 2010?
I think most people who... Haiti has had difficult years for many, many years. Politically, socially, it has been. But the big earthquake really caused problems. And I think you can almost take that as the real beginning of the sort of catastrophic position that the country finds itself now. It never recovered from it, and in fact things have got worse and worse as time has gone by. And you're right, it's a long time ago now, but I remember when the American military took over the aid operation by closing all operations down until the military had secured the airport and made sure everything was safe so that they could start bringing in large amounts of supplies. That intervening period was absolutely chaotic, and the Haitian people really, really suffered there, and it never really recovered. The whole aid effort didn't get going for a very long time, so it was dreadfully difficult for people. You're absolutely right. The international response was eventually got better and better, but its initial response was very, very poor indeed.
Then once the money started coming in, through the years, corruption and mismanagement of the aid and all that kind of thing, people lining their pockets, the whole thing has had an impact as well, I guess. And
some of the aid workers who are working there are allegations of sexual abuse in Haiti by some of the aid workers. So it could definitely been a very difficult time. And then, of course, there was another big earthquake. So it's like the country gets hit and then gets hit again and again and again. And interestingly, the gangs didn't used to be this huge problem. And in fact, if the problems existed, it was usually between the gangs themselves fighting. The gangs reunited or united themselves and started focusing on the government and society in general. That is where we've got to now, which is much more a complicated and interesting situation. Essentially, at the beginning, our friends from out there who grew up there said there were no such things as gangs when they were kids.
Yeah.
But then the gangs were fighting each other, and then they started fighting against civil society.
This is someone who knows what they're talking about. Ruarid, I'm sorry if I've said your name wrong. After decades of foreign-backed regime change, colonial debt and corruption, is there any light in the dark for the future of Haiti?
I mean, there doesn't seem to me much at the moment. I think if this UN operation can perhaps beat the gangs, and we know that taking out the leaders of these gangs, and there's some very high-profile one, perhaps the most high-profile is known to everyone as Barbecue, but his name is Jimmy Cherizier. We know, and they know more importantly, that there's a price on their head. The Kenyans tell us that they specifically want to remove the leaders of the gangs, break the gangs down, bring about some way of bringing the children, many of whom very young boys who fight for the gangs, bring them back into society to change the way of their thinking and to break these gangs down. It's possible, but still, that said, there's so many issues in the country that it still faces. One of the poorest countries in the world already. Yeah. They would have to start a major rebuilding. Is there light at the end? Possibly, but I still say that is a very, very long tunnel.
Stuart, we have a few questions about the sort of reporting, how we do these things. There's one there from Karen Wires. I think that's worth getting to.
Yeah. Going to read?
Yeah, go for it.
What is the responsibility of a journalist to get a story versus turning in these terrorists? If you can get to the gang members, where are the police?
I think that Karen might be referring to us meeting Barbecue, who Stuart just talked about, Jimmy Cherizier, last year, March. This time, we made a decision not to meet with him or go and try and meet with any of the gang leaders. I'll be honest with you, the main reason for that was a security and safety one. These guys are very much wanted men at the moment, and the security forces have started, the Haitian police really have started using drones and trying to hunt down these guys and take them out in kamikaze drone strikes. So A, it would be not a very wise thing to do right now, to be around them. B, what's the responsibility? Well, I mean, Stuart, you have through the years, you I suppose, were praised, criticized for talking to people that no one wants to talk to, criminals. At a time, you made, waves interviewing the Taliban back in, 2010, 2011. Yeah. So what is our responsibility? What do you think?
Well, I think that the issue with this is that you do need to interview people. You want to find out what their thinking is. You want to understand where they're coming from. People want to know what Barbecue thought about the Kenyan troops coming in. He told us in an interview a couple of years ago that if the gangs weren't included in any potential peace talks and the future political shape of the government, then there would be an all-out war by the gangs on society. Well, that is exactly what happened. He said it was going to, and he did, because governments the world over won't entertain conversations and meetings at an equal status as gang leaders. Yeah. But we needed to find that out. We needed to get that message out. So that's exactly an almost perfect example of why you do sometimes have to go and meet these type of people, even if you don't particularly like them. It's not that's not the position you're taking. You're trying to find out what they're having to say.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned it here as well, Karen. Their designation as terrorists, that makes a very big difference. A very big difference in our approach as well. But if we can get to them, where are the police? I think the police know exactly where they are. They're just waiting for them to kind of emerge and try and take them down, for lack of a better phrase, when there's not a lot of people around them. They're very worried about the gang leaders using human shields
Yeah.
or just coming out in crowded places. They don't want. I know for a fact from people we spoke to there, when they're trying to target these leaders, they don't want to accept a lot of collateral damage. That's not something they want.
And we know that sometimes when these gang leaders do emerge, they're surrounded by usually quite young children. Very difficult for even marksmen to take a shot at them, which our understanding is that that's exactly what the plan is.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure the gang leaders.
the gang leaders know exactly what they're doing.
Well.
And of course, when we go to see them, I don't just go and knock on the door. It's an agreement, and we are taken to certain places and made to wait a long time, and then we move to another place and another place. So you don't literally just go to Barbecue's house and knock on the door. That would probably go very badly.
Very wrong. Roger Hunard asks about. Actually, Roger, you're asking a very specific question about a sequence that's in our story. Are the security members you were with part of the Kenyan team, or are they Haitian government forces? That's the first part of your question. I think the second part about the USA-led multinational peace talks we covered a bit at the top, but no, they were neither. But I'll let Stuart do the explaining on
These
that.
are a security firm that was supplied to us with their cars, to be honest.
Armoured vehicles, yeah.
Those are armoured vehicles we were in. There's so much firing going on a daily basis in Haiti, particularly in Port-au-Prince, and it was widely thought that the best way to move around, not for being targeted per se, though there has been a hijacking and ransom demanding problem there, but specifically because of the likelihood of being caught up in an incident, and which effectively we were caught up in an incident where gangs and police start shooting at each other. So that's why.
And had we not had the armoured vehicles when we were filming that scene, when our cameraman Toby Nash was filming that scene, we would never have been able to stay as long as we stayed. We would have to have got out of there a lot quicker. You do have a degree of protection from the vehicles themselves, but the vehicles then have to be driven by quite specialist drivers, and that's who one of the guys you would have seen there, I think, which you're referring to, with our cameraman Toby Nash and our other Sky high-risk advisor, you would have seen there as well.
And I think we're up to our last question.
Last few questions.
Last question, actually.
Well, let's do quick ones. Matt, 1, 2, 3, 4. Can tourists still travel there?
No. I mean, you probably could, but I really would advise against it. I've met Haitians there, by the way, ethnically Haitians, who probably live in the United States. They were definitely on holiday, but they're coming back to visit family.
See family.
There was another tourist company in the north, wasn't there?
There were cruise liners would stop in Cap Haitian, which is in the north, but as far as I'm aware, they've stopped doing that as well. This leads into Harry's. Is life still normal in parts of Haiti?
Parts of Haiti, yes, it's normal. Got to remember, it's one of the poorest countries in the world, so it's never easy and normal. When you've got Barbecue, the gang leader controlling the port, and for example, last year, he cut off all petrol supplies to the whole of the country, because it came in through the port. So, you know, even though you were having a fairly normal life existence outside of Port-au-Prince, you suddenly couldn't say it was normal because you just ran out of petrol one day, and that could happen at any given time. So you can have quieter, more peaceful, more normal-like life, but because of the influence of the gangs, it's so big all over the country that you could never say anywhere is normal. Perhaps
we can squeeze in two last questions, because there's a good one there from Sarah W. and from AI Scott 67. AI Scott's on the future, so why don't we look at Sarah?
Of the 200 armed gangs operating in Haiti, half of which I believe have a presence in Port-au-Prince, is there any appetite for lasting peace, especially in the two main gang alliances? I think that the lasting peace would be on their terms, would it not? Yeah. Maybe their plan is to take over this particular government and install one of their own political leaders, who they, if you like, people that's affiliated to them, who you would describe as genuinely politicians as opposed to gangsters. But I mean, that's the best I think that you could be hoping for. It's
a kind of peace between the, as you point out, the various gang alliances at the moment, but who knows how long that will last. AI Scott 67, I'm 58, and in my lifetime, I don't think Haiti's ever been stable. Now it seems to be in the worst state ever. Can there be a solution to make it safe and prosperous, or is it past the point of no return?
feels a bit... you can't say never. It's really going to be a difficult job. And I suppose we have to see how this UN-backed mission fares in the coming days. But it's quite possible. I mean, it really is quite possible that Port-au-Prince could fall to the gangs, which we believe will be the first time the capital city of the country has been run entirely by gang organisations. Quite remarkable that it happens. However, that 10% includes what's left of the Haitian army, its police force and the Kenyans. So there is there's big resistance.
A big job ahead, that's for sure. Actually, Stuart, I've just been sent another because I've been told we have a tiny bit more time. Abraham Dagby, I'm very sorry, Abraham, if I've said your surname incorrect. Is it possible to invite all the gang leaders to a round-table talk or discussion on the way forward? That's what Barbecue wanted.
Barbecue wanted to do exactly that. That was the report that we effectively filed. They do hold meetings, unbeknownst to most people.
Between themselves,
they hold meetings, and they do have actual clear plans about how they would like to go forward. But you're absolutely right. They wanted to be in those meetings, but countries like the United States made it quite clear, following basic protocols, I mean, not unusual to the United States, saying we don't countenance having peace talks with criminal gangs. If they want to have peace talks or they take part in the democratic movement, make a political party and have an election. That's the sort of line that was put to them.
OK, absolute final question. I think, Rob Bruce, 1801. Sorry, Rob, we meant to get to your question near the top. This is a difficult question to answer, but we'll try. What actually caused the government to collapse and for gangs to take over in Haiti? I feel like this hasn't been covered much. I guess it just depends when we regard the gangs as a takeover. There's been gangs in Haiti since the 1990s, but they were very in Cité Soleil, which you'll see more about in a report that we have on Thursday. But they were contained in an area, but they've managed to grow, and it's been under various governments that's happened.
Yeah. And they used to fight each other as opposed to anyone else, and that was always that was the story of Haiti, the gangs fighting each other. Just quickly to say, there's political parties that started these gangs to do their own dirty work on the street. Then they turned into straight-up crime gangs. Then we've had political problems and failures, machinations, the assassination of Prime Minister, the gangs then perhaps filling in some of the vacuum that's been put in place. So it's been a tough time. It doesn't seem to have a particularly good future, it's fair to say. But I think you can all hope for the people of Haiti that things get a little better, and we'll go back and see it again.
They certainly want it. When we were there, you know, they really believe the world has completely forgotten about them. With everything else going on, it's very, very low priority in global politics, they feel. But hopefully, I don't know. Hopefully they...
Well, on that note, thank you for all your questions, and it's goodbye from us. I hope we gave you some insight into what's happening in Haiti.
Thanks.